So today's webinar is about driving change, so inclusion, leadership, and action. And we have Elyse Villani with us. So Elyse is an incredible elite cricketer. She's captain of the Hobart Hurricanes. She's represented Australia across many formats of the game. But today she's going to be talking a little bit about the behind the scenes, a take that she took in bringing the Pride round to life. And she's going to talk about how she created different opportunities and the support and the conversations that she had, and ultimately turning this idea into life. It's going to be a bit of a practical look at what leadership and advocacy can look like in sport, and you can apply this into your own club or organisation in many different ways. So Elyse is going to share some of those challenges, the conversations, the lessons that she's learned along the way, and it ultimately helps us all create more genuine, inclusive environments. So please join me in welcoming Elyse along today, and thank you for being with us.
Thanks very much, Philippa. Thanks for having me. Thanks, Joe, for having me. Yeah, I guess first and foremost, I was really chuffed to be asked to be a part of this. And I've got two disclaimers straight up front, and that is that this is the first time I've done something like this. So I beg you to stay with me and welcome any questions. I'm a bit of an open book, so I like to keep it pretty casual and relaxed, but yes, certainly an open book. And also these are just my own personal experiences. So in no way, shape or form am I, some sort of leadership guru or anything like that. Everything that I'm sort of speaking about is just from a personal point of view and things that I've learned throughout my own journey. So, and the other thing is I am 27 weeks pregnant, so I've got a mad case of the baby brain at the minute. So if I sort of lose my train of thought, please excuse me, but it's one of the more challenging things that you don't speak about, and often I find myself doing things that are quite incredible. But yeah, today I'll just be going through sort of four main talking points. I guess the first one is just a bit of my own background. The second is my leadership journey and how I ended up in Tasmania. The third, I'll touch on the WBBL Pride round. And the fourth is just from these experiences, what my personal leadership lessons are that I've learned along the way. So we'll get cracking. We'll get stuck into it. So I guess my background is I'm one of four. I'm the youngest. I've got three older brothers, and I'm the only girl. And so I fell into cricket, to be perfectly honest. It wasn't something that was on television screens. I didn't have any female role models in the sport. I absolutely just followed my brothers, played backyard cricket, and fell into sport and fell in love with it along the way. I was very happy when I met other females in cricket and realised that I wasn't the only girl in the world playing the sport. It certainly made it more enjoyable. And I really found environments that I guess just I felt seen, appreciated, respected, and that only added to the love of the game that I've had for so long. So I guess my early captaincy experiences were purely just because sometimes in sport or in junior sport and things like that is, someone that they think is a good player all of a sudden is the best candidate to be a leader, which we all know is certainly not true. And when I sort of entered more of the adult world in cricket, I was met with some pretty stern feedback that potentially I was quite selfish and I didn't have another leadership experience for quite a few years. So much so that at the end of, I was with Victoria at the time. I played for Australia and I was in the Victorian system as well. I had an end of season review with my coach. There was some other younger leaders that were starting to get some leadership opportunity. And I remember thinking, all right, I'm just going to ask, like they always say, it's good to ask questions in an end of season review. And I reckon after I asked this question, I didn't ask another question for a few years. So I said, Fitzy, do you think that I might be a candidate for some leadership opportunities? And anyone that knows Catherine Fitzpatrick, who's an absolute legend of the game, straight between the eyes, no. And I was like, oh, okay, beautiful. And it's quite funny because quite a few years later, we had a real chuckle about that moment. And I think that was the first time that I sort of realized that feedback was really important. And although I may not have enjoyed the way that Fitzy delivered most of her feedback, which was pretty blunt. Now that I've sort of a little bit older and potentially a little bit wiser, those feedback moments from Fitzy have really lent themselves to me learning a lot about myself and a lot about being a part of a team. And I look back now and I absolutely was 100% selfish at that time. I was worried about myself, about, I guess, trying to get as far as I could in my career. And I wasn't really giving much thought to the impacts that I could have on other people or what it meant to be a team player. So yeah, it allowed me to really grow up. And then during that, I guess, that growing up phase that we all go through, I never thought about being a leader again because I was like, well, it's never going to happen. I'm not a leader. So I absolutely didn't think of it again. And I just sort of started to focus on trying to be a good teammate, someone that added something to the culture, someone that people enjoyed being on a team with. And then funnily enough, leadership opportunities started to come my way once I stopped thinking about them or thinking about what a leader is or anything like that. So I guess that was sort of the first lesson that I learned, that just by being myself and actually thinking about others as a teammate then led to people almost seeing me as a leader. So yeah, that was something that I sort of found over time. And then, as we all do, we sort of go through, I guess, that growing up phase where we learn a bit about ourselves and we start to think about what our personal values are and what we stand for, what's important, what we appreciate in other people. When we're at our best, what does that look like? And throughout that period of time, my early 20s to mid 20s, I became really clear on what my personal values were, and they're authentic relationships, communication, and fun. And I think what I've been extremely lucky with is that often some people fight personal values and then trying to work out how that transfers into work and other areas of their life. But I think what I've really found is that my personal values have translated really nicely into cricket, into elite sport. So I certainly feel lucky in that regard because I know that can be really difficult. I know that my partner, Nicola, one of her personal values is fairness. And it just doesn't work in elite sport. It's really conflicting for her. And every day she's just fighting the battle within herself because, as we know, life's not fair. Elite sport certainly isn't fair. So I've always felt extremely lucky that I haven't sort of had that issue throughout my time, which sort of brings me on to, my second point, which is my leadership journey in Tasmania. And I think because more formal leadership became something that was a part of my life in my sort of mid to late 20s, it meant that I had that ability to find myself first before becoming a leader, which is something that's not always the case in sport. And I know that can be really difficult when people are given leadership roles potentially before they necessarily know who they are as an individual or how they fit into the world or how they fit in within a team. So I feel like that was a real benefit to me personally, that I didn't experience more leadership until I was a little bit later. So I moved to Tassie when I was 31, and it was really interesting because the first conversations I had at the time were with Sally Ann Beams, who was the coach, and it was known that my partner was here. We'd done 2 years of long distance and, it sort of was getting to that crunch point. Someone needs to move if we're going to have a real go at this. And I was always really clear that I was happy to move, but I didn't want to just move for someone else. I wanted to move for myself as well, because I didn't think that would be fair on her to have that responsibility, I guess, or that pressure. And I didn't want to be reliant on her for my happiness in Tasmania either. So I wanted to make sure that, yes, of course, she was a big reason, but I also wanted to have something that I was passionate about myself. I wanted to make sure that it worked for me career-wise, that I felt like I was going to get something from it in terms of something that I could be passionate about, something that was for me. That was really important. And so having a conversation with Sal at the time, I'd sort of said to her, I'm interested in coming down, I'd really like the opportunity of captain, which is quite hard to put yourself out there really, because you're asking for what you want, and that's quite daunting. And Sal was really honest with me from the get-go, which I didn't realize at the time, but that set the foundations in order at Cricket Tas, where she just made someone new the captain the year before. And so she was quite nervous about, well, if I then change the leadership again, what does that do to the team? All that sort of stuff. So she sort of needed to think about it, which I also totally understood. It's quite a unique situation. But I wanted to come down and be passionate about a program, feel like I could really contribute in other ways other than just playing. I played for so long. I'd had some captaincy experience along the way, but I just knew that, there was something driving me. I wasn't thinking about playing for Australia anymore. I just wanted to help build something. And so, yeah, having those honest conversations with her from the get-go, we circled back, came back a couple of times, and she said to me, she's like, no, I want you to come. I want you to captain. I've taken this team to where I think I can take it, and I'm ready for someone to come in who wants to lead, and I'm ready to jump on your coattails. And I'll never forget that moment, because that was the first time in my life that someone had really given me the permission to lead. And I hadn't had that before. And it was just like, for her to be like, yep, you're the right person for this job. I'm going to back you and I'm going to follow you. And it's now yours to take where you need to take it. I was like, wow, like just the empowerment that gave me was incredible. The other thing that happened straight away was Dom Baker, the CEO, he called me straight away. As soon as I said I was coming, he called me straight away. And he just, I've never spoken to the bloke before in my life. Rings me up, introduces himself and says, like, we're so excited to have you. We're so excited for you to lead this team. Like, you're the right person. Like basically we couldn't be happier, all this sort of stuff. And, it was probably 5-10 minutes out of Dom's day. But again, the lasting impression that has had on me, straight away, heading into a new organisation, I felt incredibly respected. I felt incredibly valued. And I felt like the foundation to have open and honest communication was there from the get-go. And I feel like that just really set me up to be able to come down to Tassie and to know that I could come in as myself and that they were all behind me. And the confidence that gave me and the empowerment that gave me is something that I sort of struggled to put into words, because I'm not sure that they understand the impacts that has had on my leadership, and how I've felt from the get-go joining Cricket Tasmania as an organisation, and how happy I've been in the environment. So much so that my parents said to me within the first season, geez, we wish you had have moved here a little bit earlier. Like, the way that they were embraced into the Cricket Tas family, they've always loved coming to watch my sport. They've been well taken care of. And I think, we are a smaller organisation, but that's what we do incredibly well, is we think about what our unique strengths can be, and that is welcoming the people that are important in our lives and making them feel a part of it as well. And I'd been a part of many organisations before that. And yeah, my parents were just like, it's a shame you're already over 30, because, we really would have liked to enjoy this for a few more years. So they were a little bit disappointed that I made the move as late as what I did. So I guess the other thing with Cricket Tasmania is that it allowed the way that they embraced me. It meant that I could come in with my own personal values and lead and just be myself. So, it allowed me to strive to be an authentic and consistent leader. And it feels weird to sort of say that, because I don't think that's something that you can necessarily comment about yourself. I think that's for other people to judge. But that's something that I try to do. I try and be myself. I try and be consistent. And I sure as put my hand up when I make mistakes, because I think that's incredibly important as well. And I think if you can do that as a leader, if you can be yourself, if you can be consistent, if you can make mistakes and admit your mistakes, then the permission piece that gives to people around you is really important. Just as much as the permission that Sal and Dom gave me. It's almost like when you're in a position of leadership, what permission can you give to the people around you, where you say, we embrace you. What makes you different and unique is seen and valued, and it's important. It's an important part of this organisation, and we just want you to come in and add to this environment, but do it in your own unique and authentic way. I think that just helps set up environments and gives you the best chance of being successful, I believe. So heading into Pride Round, this stems back quite a few years, where I actually was playing for the Melbourne Stars, and we used to play against the Sydney Sixers a little bit. And the Sydney Sixers, they sort of first started the Pride Round just by themselves, and playing against them, I just felt incredibly embarrassed that we were playing against the Sydney Sixers. They were celebrating the Pride Round, and we were just standing there. And basically it's like, the Sydney Sixers, they embrace inclusion and diversity, and then it's like, in the Melbourne Stars, we're just Melbourne Stars. We don't really think about that, or take the time to think about that. And I'm sure that's not correct, but that's how I felt as a person, where people might be turning up to the game and they're seeing one team that is incredibly welcoming, and they're seeing another team that's doing absolutely nothing. Who do you think they're going to gravitate towards? And so that's always something that stuck with me. And so when I switched over to the Hurricanes, for the first sort of 2 to 3 years, we sort of made our own Pride Round, and we dressed up for Pride Round, and we had a team walk in, which was really cool. So we would meet in the car park, and our media team would get around us and would wear these crazy outfits, and they would sort of film it, and it would go on our socials. And it was, it was always optional. It was a bit of fun. The change room was decorated, but it always felt a little bit tokenistic, because I didn't feel like it ever made a bigger impact. I didn't really feel like it went anywhere else. It was almost just a little bit gimmicky. And then it's started getting a little bit tiring as well. It started to fizzle out. It felt a little bit annoying as a player, to be honest, to a week beforehand be like, oh, we've got Pride Round, like, if you want to dress up, arrive at this time. And there just wasn't a lot of forethought behind it. It was definitely player-led, and it just started to fizzle out. So what really helped make that change for us was we collected feedback from players after WBBL 10, and that's where we really understood what was important to the playing group and the staff, and that was the environment. So we couldn't compete with the mainland clubs where, they're putting people up in Coogee, or putting people up in Chapel Street and all that sort of stuff. And I guess we'd always struggled to, retain players against, mainland clubs if they were sort of able to offer these things that we couldn't offer at the Hurricanes. But we realized that we'd sort of stumbled across a really great environment, and we had really good people in our team and our staff and our organisation. And that was the overwhelming feedback that we were getting back. The reason that people were coming back was because they loved the environment. It wasn't because they were, sort of just staying down at Salamanca. It wasn't because you could offer them a bit more money or anything like that. It was simply because they loved being a part of the environment. So then it was almost like, okay, well, how do we make this our super strength? How do we make this environment our super strength? And one of the things was the Pride Round. It was naturally an extension of this. So conversations occurred between myself and Sal. So the head coach that I mentioned earlier, she'd left us a couple of years in, and she went to high performance manager. She was always destined for bigger roles, which is awesome because I already had that relationship with her. And the one thing that you can be assured of Sal is that you can 100% be honest, and she will 100% be honest back with you. And I think that's always been something that I've really admired, because you always know where you stand and you always know what you're going to get. And she's very consistent in that and has never wavered. So took those conversations that we had. She took them to the exec team in the organisation. And from there, a working group was made, led by Sal and Ali, another exec. And then they sort of started thinking like, okay, how can we make this less tokenistic? How can we make this systemic so that we get the change that we need throughout the organisation? So we really make the community feel part of this, and we make the players feel like the organisation is behind them. So all of this work was being done in the background after WBBL 10. So they sort of had probably like 6 months before WBBL 11 was starting. So onto it straight away, reached out to Pride in Sport because the execs, Sal and Ali, realised, well, how actually can we make this impactful? Like, we're yet to achieve this. So let's actually speak to some people and get, I guess, their advice. And from reaching out to Pride in Sport, together they got a roadmap of how to take the organisation to a gold standard in inclusivity. So from there, they then, they had, like, Sal kept me in the loop, asked questions, asked what was important to the players. Her and I were sharing ideas, but ultimately she created this working group that her and Ali led. They came up with a whole timeline, kept everyone accountable across the organisation, so that by the time we came together as players and staff in October, all of this was already done. So they were able to present to the playing group what's actually been done, what the organisation stands for, and basically, like, we've listened to your feedback. This is just one thing that we're going to do to showcase our environment and also, I guess, actioning the feedback as well. So that went from, the infographics. I'd spoken to a player, Ruth Johnston, an ally of the LGBTQIA plus community, who's really arty. So she designs the logo. So getting her involved in that. There was a comms alignment and a plan to deliver with the media team that organised how they were going to implement into Content Day for the players. There was an organisational statement. There was already in place the plan of having the rainbow on the hill, which ended up staying for a week. So it kept getting a bit more airtime, which was great. We made sure we chose a televised game. And then we also had an optional bus. So we got an LGBTQIA plus bus. Sal and I were with the media on the horn. And so we actually met off-site and we invited all the players, all the staff. We invited the opposition as well. We let the media know. And who was front and centre on that bus? Don and Sal. So the CEO, the high performance manager, dressed up on the bus. Straight away, it connected the head of the organisation to the last contracted player. And you felt like you were a part of something bigger than yourselves. And it became about the whole community, how we wanted people to feel within CT and the broader community, that we not only welcome and accept what makes people unique, special and different, but we celebrate it. And that was really important. And so all of this was in the works, so that when we came together for our first player meeting, we had the Pride in Sport guys come in and they spoke about the importance of inclusivity. And that just sort of set the tone for that season, because it touched on, it presented the research, so it presented the facts. It touched on the importance of allies, and it also opened up the conversations for people to speak within the room as well. So I shared my experience in terms of how cricket for me was the first safe space I felt as someone a part of this community. And that was really important growing up, that I had that safe space, because there was a lot of challenges along the way that I had from a family point of view and all that sort of stuff. So having cricket and that environment was super important. We had Nat, one, big international from England, captain of England. She had a wife and son across from England to be a part of the tournament, which was awesome. And then we also had a really good friend of mine Molly Strano, who just sort of epitomized the importance of allies. And because the research and the education from Pride in Sport was not just about the people who connected directly to the community or identified as part of the community, it was also about how other people can help play a part. And so Molly standing up and talking about how, some of her best friends are a part of this community, and she's always felt quite lucky, I guess, identifying as a straight woman, but it has always made her feel disappointed that she's had to watch her best friends go through this. And I think that really hit home for a lot of the allies in the room, because understanding how much they can champion it, just from the simple things such as wearing the badge, wearing a lanyard, thinking about pronouns, and just the really simple things and the language that you can use, and how you can be an ally and how you can impact those around you. You don't have to be a part of the community. You don't have to identify as part of the community or know someone within the community, but actually understanding the power that you have just by being an ally is incredible. And that was probably some of the strongest feedback we got from our staff and our players, from perhaps going from this doesn't, the Pride round, this doesn't really have anything to do with me, to I didn't realize that I could play such a significant part in this. And they felt educated and they felt empowered to help make a stand. So that was probably the biggest feedback that we got, which was, pretty incredible, to be honest. And it just sort of showcased how important education was. So for people to feel empowered to be part of the solution, no matter where they stood within the community, was exceptionally powerful. And we've got other players within our squad that have religious backgrounds, and they were all excellent. And we made sure that we'd had conversations with them beforehand. I made sure that I had individual conversations with them beforehand, understanding that may be conflicting, but the way that they sort of embraced it, and we thought of potential barriers beforehand, made sure we had the conversations that we need to have before presenting it to the whole group, was really important. And I think that sort of goes back to the relationships as well, the relationships and the trust that we'd sort of built within the team. It could have been really daunting having those conversations, but I'm lucky in terms of, it was fantastic. We've got Ruth, who's religious and attends church every Sunday, and she was the one that designed the logo for the hat. I mean, that just goes to show that it's pretty incredible how people can come together and understand that, yes, it may be about the LGBTQIA community for this round, but the bigger message that we're actually sending is that no matter who you are, no matter who you identify as, no matter what you believe in, we want to make Cricket Tas and the Hurricanes a place that you feel seen, heard, respected, and like you can just come and be yourself. And that was the most important message that we wanted to send as a group. So I guess it brings me to my last point, which is personal leadership lessons that I've learned along the way. And I guess number one for me was that my own story, experiences growing up, and understanding from an early age that I felt different, it led me to understand that environment is key. And as I mentioned, cricket was the first safe space I experienced because I felt respected and seen. And for me, it's no surprise that that's where I've been the happiest and therefore also had the most success. So that may be different things for different people, but environment is just number one for me. And as inclusive as you can make an environment, I think you're setting up your people to have the best chance of being happy. And if we're happy, then I think it sets us up for the best chance of being successful as well. And so that's been number one. Number two is that, as I mentioned earlier, the personal values aligning with my own leadership values and with the organisational values has been hugely beneficial. it's meant that for me, I can turn up every day and just be myself, which leads to being as consistent as possible. It gives permission for others to hopefully do the same, to be able to turn up and be themselves. And selfishly as well, as a leader, it means that I've been able to spend the least amount of energy leading, in a sense, because we know that leadership can be highly draining. It can be isolating at times. You're often making difficult decisions. You absolutely learn pretty quickly you can't make everyone happy. But for me, because I'm passionate and believe in what we stand for as an organisation, and it aligns with who I am as a person, any of those times that it becomes testing, it is made a lot easier because there's that underlying passion and belief that we're on the same page. So that's been a big thing for me. And again, it's almost led me to think, cricket for me is not going to be forever. But the biggest lesson that I've learned from that is that whatever jobs I go into in the future, that's really important to me. The people, the environment, and the values within the organisation, the people that I work with, that for me, because I've experienced it and I understand how beneficial it's been, that's going to be the thing that I almost base my future work choices off, because you spend so much of your life at work, and it's really important. You won't enjoy every single minute of every single day at work. It's just not possible. That's what holidays are for. But I think for me, it's made me realize that is number one. And that's always something that I will want to keep in my workplace moving forward. Number 3, my third lesson is that being vulnerable, admitting mistakes, and just being a human is really important as a leader, because you're much more relatable. And again, you send that strong message and give permission for others to fail too. And in cricket and in sport, we always spoke about positive mistakes. There's a big thing around fear of failure in elite sport. I think it's a bit of a dirty word at times, because ultimately, if you're striving for something, you will fail along the way. But I think you need to fail to continue to grow, continue to get better, continue to push the boundaries. So actually celebrating the positive mistakes or the positive failures along the way are really important. And as a leader, if people think you're robotic, if people think that you're perfect, that they're not looking hard enough, or you're not actually showing them your human element, in my personal opinion, because no one wants to feel as though they have to be perfect. So that's wherever you are in life, in a relationship, at work, no one's perfect, and it's absolutely okay. So just putting your hand up is really important. And my final lesson that I've learned is that you can't do it alone. Relationships matter. Allies are the key. And the more authentic those relationships are based off, the better. So I guess I'm lucky in that I really enjoy working with people and I love being around people. But yeah, the minute I feel alone in leading is the minute that I sort of stop enjoying it as well, because those relationships are so key for me. So yeah, hopefully, you've gotten something out of that. I feel like I've just been speaking at you, so I really apologize and welcome any questions or comments that you have.
Thanks, Elyse. That is amazing. Please feel free to drop any questions you have into the comments there. If anything, I get from you pure authenticity, which just comes through on every angle, which is really cool. I have one question for you. You talked about receiving some stern feedback. How did you handle that, and how do you give feedback now?
Yeah, it's a good question. At the time, I didn't handle it very well. I was like, oh, you bitch. Like, honestly, I can't believe you've just said that to me. But I think for me, that's why relationships are so important, because you sort of, I think if you have a respectful relationship, then giving feedback that someone knows, well, hopefully you can't control how someone receives your feedback. That's the biggest thing. But for me, if I've got a relationship with someone, then and also I'm consistent in the values that we're trying to uphold, and I'm always bringing the feedback back to the bigger team goal. So it's never a personal attack. It's never based on someone's personality or anything like that. it's never personal. It's just about, are we heading towards this goal or are we heading away from this goal? And let's just get us back on track. And also just, I guess, empowering people to understand that they may, as long as they're contributing to that goal, it might look different and that's okay. And I'm very comfortable with people doing things in their own manner, but it has to contribute positively to the goal and to the team. So depersonalizing it as much as possible. And the better the relationship you have with someone, the more you can really think about how you deliver that feedback so that they hear it. So the way that I deliver feedback to one player may not be the same as the way I deliver feedback to another player, because ultimately they're two different people. And it's my responsibility as a leader to understand how best that feedback is going to be heard, because it's not about me delivering the message or if I think I've delivered the message. It's about, has that person heard the message? And I often say this to my partner as well. Sometimes I'm like, oh, I can't take your feedback on because you've lost me with your tone. And and so she gets really frustrated. And I'm like, but it's true. If you put people on the back foot straight away, she may have the world's greatest point for me, but she's lost me. So number one, she loses out because the message isn't received by me. And number two, I don't improve in that area. So everyone's a loser in that instance. So it is really important to really think about, how. So yes, giving the feedback is important, but how is much more important.
That's great, Elyse. I love that. I'm going to use that actually about not taking your feedback on because you've lost me with your tone. I haven't heard that said before, but it's really good. I just wanted to touch on, it's not a question, but it's more a comment around your points about allies and allyship and the importance of that across so many areas of inclusivity. And I see that a little bit with one of the clients I work with, who's Reconciliation Tasmania, in terms of allies there. But I think with anything, having allies, but also having people that understand, like actual genuine allies, and not just people that say, oh yeah, I support that, or I support Pride Round, or I support this, but people that understand and actually take action to be an ally is a really positive thing that has a massive link into the culture of an organisation or any culture, whether it's an organisation, a team, whatever it may be. And so for me, that link between culture and allies and values and all that sort of thing, it all just comes beautifully together. And I think sometimes you can work really hard as a leader and as an organisation to plan that, but also sometimes it's just the right fit of people that makes the magic happen at the right time.
Absolutely. Yeah. I couldn't agree more. It's like, Molly Schreiner was an unbelievable person. I didn't word her up at all, but because she's such a good person and she's the right fit, she stood up herself off her own back and shared how important she felt like her role was as an ally. And it was authentic, it was natural, and it had a huge effect on the other allies in the room, but also as someone who identifies themselves as someone a part of that community, to feel that genuine backing from someone, it's something I'll never forget. And it also just helps to share the load as well. And she took on media responsibility. She was like, whatever I need to do, I'm going to do this. It's not just about the people who identify as part of the LGBTQIA community. It's about all of us. So I felt I think a lot of the times the allies can be more important than those that are directly involved in the community, because it's not for personal gain. It's because they genuinely understand and are, really, really backing it.
Yeah. Yeah. Agree. Yeah. The other thing I wanted to touch on is your points about where you go later in your career, whatever. And it's interesting to me, I was reflecting back on a previous webinar with Liz Dack, that whole thing of people that have spent most of their career in sport, and then that realization that actually these things that I've learned, these skills that I have as a leader, can actually transfer to so many other different fields. So again, just a comment that I think is a really good lesson for people.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I feel like being involved in sport, you're absolutely right. There's so many things that you learn along the way that you don't realize are really important when you're a part of a workplace. And simple things like being able to work in a team, I mean, that is just one of the most underrated skills going around. And the great thing about sport is the diversity within sport and the different people that you meet and come into contact with and work with. And that just really sets you up, I think, for success outside, because you're out of your bubble more by being involved in sport, because it is so diverse.
Elyse, it's Peter G here. How you doing? Well, congratulations on you and Nicola's upcoming bub. All the best. You're looking really well, so I think it's going to be a happy time. Of course, it will be for both of you. But just as a member of the board, I don't know that it probably got passed on to you, but I personally never felt more prouder of the organisation than the lead up to the Pride round, and the way you and Sal and Molly the messaging and way you handled the media just made me immensely proud. And I'm glad to hear that you felt like you were getting the support of the broader organisation. But that's just a statement. But taking the leadership thing, everything you said today has been so interesting. But Maisie Gibson's now going to step into your very big shoes as the Tigers captain. I sort of can draw parallels between Sophie Molyneux taking over from Meg Lanning, as the Australian captain, and now she's led the team to a World Cup. What have you told Maisie? Because we really, I guess, as fans, don't know as much about her. She's a quieter personality than perhaps you are. She's a different person, I guess. What have you sort of said about Maisie, about the job that is now in front of her? What sort of advice have you given her?
Yeah, well, to be perfectly honest, I haven't given her much advice, because the one thing that I have said to her is that no two leaders are the same, and it's really important that I give her the space for her to be able to come in and lead the team in her own unique way. And I think I was away for the last 7 weeks, and it was really important for me to almost get space from the group, because for the last 5 years, they've seen me as the captain and the leader of that team. And I felt like it was really important to get some space from that so that Maisie could come in and I guess stamp her own authority. And all I've sort of said to her is, I'm always available for you to ask any questions, for us to have a coffee, chat, anything that you would like to. But ultimately, I'm not going to come to Maisie with all these ideas or anything like that. It's very much on her terms, because the most important thing is that, she needs to find her feet and to understand what works for her. And if I'm too close to that, then I think that I take away her ability to understand and to learn what makes her a unique and genuine leader. And ultimately, that's the most important thing. That's what I believe in. She's really good with people. So I think it will come quite naturally to her. And I know that she's really passionate about Cricket Tasmania, and that's all you really want. You want someone to care about the program. You want someone to care about other people, and who she becomes as a leader is something that, may take a little bit of time for her to understand. But she's got the right ingredients to take the team forward. And the most important role I can play is to just be someone who's ultra supportive, someone that's there if she needs, but certainly not someone that's there too much either. I think that's important.
I would like to think that you were consulted on the naming of the successor. Was that right?
No, I don't think that's my job at all. I stood on the outside, and I still got a great relationship with Jude, the head coach, and again, offering my services to be a bit of a sounding board and be a support of her. But ultimately, I don't think you can. I think once you've stepped back from something, you've got to step back from it, and you've got to take your hands off the wheel. And so all I'm doing now is just here if you need, on the sidelines, here if you need. But they're both super capable of running the show, and I'm really looking forward to being a huge supporter of Jude and Maisie and the team. And the team and the organisation will always be something that's incredibly special to me, and something that I'll still be involved in. And it's just got to, I guess, work out what that actually looks like moving forward. But I'm certainly won't be a stranger to cricket, Taz, but finding that balance between being around and I guess not being too around, if that makes sense, at the same time.
Thanks so much, Elyse. Just being mindful of time, we're going to wrap things up there, but we are so grateful for you joining us today. I know I've written down a ton of notes that I'm going to take away to my own sport and start to implement. And I'm sure everyone else here is going to run away with that as well. So thank you. Please give Elyse some love in the comments and thank you for your time with us today.